Hi there, my name is Vicent Lohse and I'm on the RonDB team working at Hopsworks. And today I'll be showing you how to run a RonDB cluster using Docker Compose with our GitHub repository RonDB-Docker. So this is the repository on GitHub, RonDB-Docker, and it's a fork of the MySQL Docker repository, and it's pretty much a complete rewrite of it. If you clone the repository, which you see here, you'll have a fairly extensive README files from which you can copy out different commands to run your cluster. So in our case, we'll try to run a cluster including a benchmark. So that's a bit further down here, running a benchmark. And so this offers different types of benchmarks, which are listed down here: Sysbench single, multi, dbt2 single, multi, and we'll try to run a Sysbench single multi. So we'll copy out the command here, and when we look at the command, this essentially means that we'll be running RonDB version 21.4.9, one management container, one node group, a replication factor of 2, one MySQL server, meaning MySQL container, and one API node. And this is where we will be running our benchmarks from. Also importantly is that I have downloaded a tarball of RonDB here, which is available on repo.hops.works. I have that open here under master, and down here you can find all sorts of different RonDB tarballs that you can find. Look for a Linux tarball, and then depending on your CPU architecture, then ARM or AMD. I run a MacBook with the M1 processor, so I'm using ARM64. So let's run that here. And right, so it's already created the cluster. It goes very fast if you've built it before. And this auto-generates a couple of files, which you find here. They're not committed, and they're created for every single specific cluster that you create. So first of all, and most importantly, it creates this Docker Compose file with, in this case, well, one management server, one NDBD, two NDBD services, one for each replica, and one for the MySQL server, and one for the API benchmark. So looking at Docker Desktop here, you can see that 5 different containers spawned, and I also downloaded this extensions, Docker extension called resource usage, which helps you get some kind of overview of the memory and the CPU usage that your cluster is taking up. It says 1000% here because I allowed my Docker engine to use all my 10 CPUs and 5 gigabytes of RAM of the 21 gigabytes that I allowed Docker to use. So the benchmarks should be starting any minute. Right, okay, it's starting now. So since I'm using Sysbench, you can go into the Sysbench file. So the Sysbench single directory is mounted into the API container. And so we also auto-generate a autobench.conf file, which is essentially the configuration for Sysbench. And we're going to be running through a couple of, different amounts of threads on the API server. So you'll see here, right now we're running thread number of threads 2. So we're already on the second testing level. And in the meantime, we'll just go into the management container so you can interact with all of these containers fairly easily. So let's say we want to go into the management container, switch to bash, and then you have all of the executables which are in the RonDB tarball right available. So we'll just try to open the management client and see how our cluster is doing. And so this essentially queries the management server of this about the state of the cluster. So both data nodes are up, our management server is also up, and our MySQL containers, the MySQL server is using 2 slots, and that's also up. Then let's just go to the MySQL server. So you can also interact with the MySQL server fairly easily. And we'll open the MySQL client via the MySQL command executable, and we'll log in with root. We haven't given root any password, so this should be fairly easy, right? So you can do something simple such as show databases or any other MySQL command that you come up with, and it should work. So DBT2 is DBT2's SB test. Those are the databases that we create for the benchmarking to make it more easy for you to just start up. Right, so now we're at 12 threads. Okay, so that should be the last test. Should be finished any second. And just quickly, additionally, if you want to have a look at any of the log directories or log directories or data directories, they're all mounted as volumes. So for instance, for NDBDs, you can go into here, data directory. And so NDBD1 will probably have the node ID 1, right? Okay, so here you will find the data that is persisted on a regular basis into storage. So RonDB is an in-memory database, but it does persist the data regularly. And so if you really want to go into here, you can obviously have a look there. The other directories should be empty exactly because those are for the different node IDs. Okay, so the API container exited with 0. That means that the benchmark was successful. And that also means that this will have created a final_result.txt file. And to interpret everything that kind of sysbench creates and DBT2 creates, you can look at the RonDB documentation for benchmarking. And then you'll be able to interpret this a lot better. You can also go into the live file whilst the thing is running, whilst the benchmark is running. But this should do it at the very end. So now the container has exited. One more thing I really like showing with RonDB is that since we have a replication factor of 2 and 1 node group, you can essentially really easily just say, okay, I want to stop one data node. In the meantime, let's go to the management server, just check whether what the state of the cluster is. Still up. 1 second, let's see. Okay, well now it's exited, right? Terminal, and let's go here. You can see that the first data node is not connected anymore. And then if you just press play again, nope, wrong one, management container, and do the same thing again, you'll see that the data node is starting again. And you could technically write any sort of script in the MySQL server to really make sure that the cluster is actually still running, that you still have access to your data whilst you're basically just restarting a replica, or whilst the replica might be down for any other reasons, networking issues perhaps. So that was it. We have a QR code here that you can scan in case you want to join our Slack community or look at our latest tutorials. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask them. We're very happy to help or answer any questions if you have problems starting this up, or whether you're thinking about using RonDB as your database for your next application. Thanks a lot. That was me, Vincent, and hope to see you next time as well. Bye-bye.